Hello there, gentle soul, and welcome back to this quiet corner of the universe, where we explore the beautiful mysteries that surround us. I'm so grateful you've chosen to spend this moment with me, wherever you might be right now. Tonight, we're going to venture into one of the most mind-bending ideas in all of science. The possibility that time, this thing we feel flowing around us, like an invisible river, might not actually exist at all. We'll discover how Einstein gently shattered our assumptions, how quantum mechanics whispers strange secrets, and why the ticking of your clock might be the universe's most persistent magic trick. I'm curious, where are you listening from right now? Is it evening where you are? Or perhaps the quiet hours of early morning? Whatever time your clock displays, hold that thought. We might just discover it's more mysterious than you ever imagined. If you find this journey soothing, a gentle like helps this content reach other curious minds seeking calm exploration. And if you'd like more of these peaceful scientific wanderings, consider subscribing. Think of it as keeping a bookmark in the universe's most fascinating stories. Now, I should warn you, this topic might be dangerously interesting. You might find yourself so absorbed in these ideas that you forget what time it is entirely, which, as we'll discover, might be perfectly appropriate. So settle in, take a comfortable breath, and let's step together into a universe where time might be the grandest illusion of all. Close your eyes for a moment and feel this instant, this precise now that you're experiencing. Do you sense it? That feeling of being perched on the edge of the present, with the past flowing behind you like a river you can never re-enter, and the future approaching like a gentle wave you can never quite catch. This sensation is so fundamental to being human that we rarely question it. We wake each morning feeling like we're surfing forward on the crest of now, watching yesterday slip away and tomorrow draw near. Every heartbeat seems to push us further along this invisible conveyor belt we call time. We say things like time flies when we're having fun, or time drags when we're bored, as if time itself were a flowing substance that can speed up or slow down based on our mood. Think about how you experience a simple conversation. Words flow from the past into the present and dissolve into memory. You feel yourself moving through the dialogue, sentence by sentence, breath by breath. There's this overwhelming sense that you're traveling, not through space, but through something equally real and tangible. We call this something time, and it feels as solid and inevitable as gravity itself. But here's where things begin to get deliciously strange. This flow you're feeling, this sense of moving forward through moments. What if I told you that physics suggests this might be one of the most convincing illusions in the entire universe? What if that feeling of now sliding into then is more like a magic trick performed by your consciousness, rather than a fundamental feature of reality? Consider how we actually detect the passage of time. We don't have a time organ the way we have eyes for light or ears for sound. Instead, we piece together our sense of temporal flow from memory, from the rhythm of our hearts, from the way our thoughts seem to unfold in sequence. We're like detectives trying to reconstruct a crime scene, using clues and evidence to build a story about what happened when. But what if the story we're telling ourselves is beautiful, compelling, and completely wrong? Even more intriguingly, this sense of flow seems to have a direction. We remember eating breakfast this morning, but we don't remember eating lunch tomorrow. We can influence the future, but not the past. This asymmetry feels so obvious that questioning it seems almost silly. Of course, time moves forward. Just look around. Things break down, people age, flowers bloom and wither. The universe seems to have a clear preference for moving in one direction through time. Yet the more closely scientists have examined this supposedly obvious truth, the more mysterious it becomes. When we peer into the fundamental equations that describe reality, the mathematical poetry that governs everything from falling apples to spinning galaxies, something remarkable emerges. These equations work equally well running forward or backward in time. The deepest laws of physics seem to be what we call time-symmetric, meaning they don't care which direction you call past and which you call future. It's as if the universe's instruction manual has been written in a language that doesn't distinguish between yesterday and tomorrow. While we're sitting here absolutely convinced that we're traveling from one to the other, This creates one of the most beautiful puzzles in all of science. If the fundamental laws don't prefer any direction in time, why do we experience such a strong sense of temporal flow? This puzzle becomes even more enchanting when we realize that our sensation of now seems to have no duration at all. Try to catch the present moment, really pin it down. Is now a second long? A millisecond? The more precisely you try to define it, the more it seems to slip away like water through your fingers. The present moment appears to be infinitesimally thin, a moving boundary between past and future that somehow contains all of our lived experience. So as we begin this gentle exploration together, hold this thought: the most intimate, immediate aspect of your existence, your sense of flowing through time, might be a magnificent construction of consciousness rather than a window into reality's true nature. Let's imagine you're sitting in a quiet room, and the only sound is the gentle tick-tock of a wall clock. Each tick seems to mark another moment passing, another step forward in time's steady march. We've surrounded ourselves with these temporal sentries, clocks, watches, calendars, schedules, all apparently measuring the flow of time itself. But what if I suggested that these devices aren't measuring time at all, but something entirely different? Think about what a clock actually does. Inside that ticking timepiece, whether it's mechanical or digital, something is moving in a regular, predictable pattern. In an old-fashioned pendulum clock, a weight swings back and forth. In a quartz watch, a tiny crystal vibrates millions of times per second. In an atomic clock, electrons dance between energy levels in cesium atoms. Each of these clocks is simply counting repetitions: swing, 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 or tick, 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 or vibration, vibration. Now here's the fascinating part. These devices aren't measuring time flowing past them. They're measuring their own internal changes, their own rhythmic movements, their own dance of transformation. A clock is like a person walking at a steady pace, counting their steps, and then declaring that their step count represents something called time. But what if time itself isn't flowing at all? What if clocks are simply very good at changing in regular, predictable ways? Consider this gentle thought experiment. Imagine you're in a universe where absolutely nothing changes. No particles move, no atoms vibrate, no thoughts unfold in minds, no stars burn, no hearts beat. In such a perfectly static universe, would time still exist? Would it still flow? There would be no clocks to tick, no processes to mark duration, no changes to sequence into before and after. The very concept of time would become meaningless, like trying to measure the color of silence. This suggests something profound. Time might not be a river we float down, but rather the name we give to the fact that things change. When we say time passes, we might really be saying things are happening, processes are unfolding, the universe is transforming from one state to another. Time, in this view, isn't a stage on which change occurs. It's simply our word for change itself. Think about how we actually use temporal language in everyday life. We don't say time did something the way we might say the wind blew or the sun shone. Instead, we say things like, it took time for the water to boil, or time will heal this wound. Notice how time is always connected to change, to process, to transformation. We never encounter pure time by itself, only time as measured by change. Even our most sophisticated scientific definitions of time depend on change. The official international definition of a second is based on counting the oscillations of radiation from cesium atoms, a very precise way of counting changes, but still fundamentally about change, not about time as an independent entity. It's as if we've defined the meter as the distance light travels and then forgotten that we're really talking about light's journey, not some abstract thing called distance. This realization opens up a beautiful possibility. What if all our clocks, from sundials to atomic timepieces, are elaborate change detectors rather than time measurers? What if they're simply comparing one type of change, the pendulum's swing, to another type of change, the Earth's rotation, or our aging, or the unfolding of events we care about? When you check your watch and think, oh, it's 3 o'clock, you're really comparing the change state of your timepiece to the change state of everything else around you. You're synchronizing your personal rhythm with the great dance of transformation that we call the universe. The watch isn't telling you what time it is, it's telling you what state of change everything has reached together. This perspective transforms our relationship with temporal anxiety. That feeling of running out of time or time slipping away becomes less about something being taken from us and more about the natural, beautiful fact that everything in the universe is constantly transforming, including ourselves. We're not losing time, we're participating in the cosmic dance of change that creates the illusion we call time. As we sit here together, contemplating the possibility that our most basic experience might be an illusion, something wonderful begins to happen. The very ground of our everyday understanding starts to feel less solid, less certain, and somehow more magical. What we thought was the most obvious truth about existence, that time flows from past to future, begins to reveal itself as perhaps the most sophisticated mystery we've ever encountered. This shift in perspective is like discovering that what you thought was a window was actually a mirror, or that what seemed like solid ground was actually the surface of a vast, deep ocean. The familiar world doesn't disappear, but it transforms into something far more intriguing. Every ticking clock becomes not a servant of time, but a participant in the grand cosmic dance of change. Every schedule becomes not a way to organize time, but a way to synchronize our changes with the changes around us. But this realization brings with it a profound question. If time isn't what we thought it was, then what is it? And perhaps even more intriguingly, what are we? If our sense of traveling through time is an illusion created by consciousness, then how deep does this illusion go? Are we the authors of our own temporal experience, writing the story of past and future moment by moment? Consider the beautiful paradox we find ourselves in. Here you are, listening to these words, feeling like you're moving forward through this exploration, sentence by sentence, idea by idea. And yet, if what we're discovering is true, this sense of progression might be consciousness weaving together a seamless narrative from what is actually a far stranger, more eternal reality. You're not moving through time, you're constructing the experience of temporal movement from something much more fundamental and mysterious. This doesn't make your experience less real or less valid. If anything, it makes it more remarkable. Your consciousness is performing an extraordinary feat, taking whatever the true nature of reality might be and crafting from it this coherent, meaningful experience of flowing through moments. You're not just observing time, you're creating the experience of temporality itself, like a master storyteller who makes you believe completely in the reality of their tale. And here's what's truly beautiful about this possibility. If time is indeed something consciousness constructs rather than discovers, then every moment of your awareness is an act of creation. Right now, as you process these words, you're not just passively receiving information, you're actively weaving the fabric of temporal experience, creating the sense that these ideas are unfolding in sequence, that understanding is building moment by moment. This perspective invites us to hold our relationship with time more lightly, more playfully. Those moments when you lose track of time while absorbed in something beautiful, reading a captivating book, watching a sunset, having a deep conversation with someone you love, might actually be moments when you glimpse reality more directly. When the constructed flow of time dissolves, you might be seeing more clearly, not less. Similarly, those periods when time seems to crawl, waiting in line, sitting through a boring meeting, counting minutes until something you're dreading is over, might be moments when consciousness is working especially hard to maintain the temporal illusion, when the effort of constructing time's flow becomes visible and uncomfortable. As we prepare to dive deeper into this mystery, I invite you to hold these ideas gently, like snowflakes that will melt if grasped too tightly. We're not trying to destroy your sense of time or make your everyday experience feel meaningless. Instead, we're opening doorways to wonder, discovering that the most familiar aspects of existence might be far more extraordinary than we ever imagined. The universe has been keeping this beautiful secret for billions of years, and we're just beginning to decode its gentle hints. Every physicist who measures time dilation, every philosopher who questions temporal flow, every mystic who experiences timeless awareness is contributing to our growing understanding of what might be the most elegant illusion ever conceived. You measure, Iemfer, Iemfer So as we continue this journey together, remember that questioning the nature of time isn't about finding the right answer. It's about falling more deeply in love with the mystery of existence itself. There once was a young patent clerk in Switzerland who spent his days examining other people's inventions and his evenings pondering the deepest questions about light, space, and time. His name was Albert Einstein, and he was about to offer humanity one of the most beautiful and startling gifts in the history of thought: the discovery that time is far stranger and more flexible than anyone had ever imagined. Picture young Einstein, perhaps sitting by a window on a quiet afternoon, watching a streetcar glide past, while pondering a simple question: what would happen if you could travel alongside a beam of light? This wasn't just idle curiosity. It was the kind of deep, childlike wonder that occasionally cracks open the universe and reveals its secrets. And what Einstein discovered would forever change how we understand the ticking of every clock, the aging of every living thing, and the very nature of existence itself. The revelation came gently, like dawn breaking over a landscape you thought you knew completely. Einstein realized that time, this thing we experience as so steady, so reliable, so universal, actually stretches and compresses depending on how fast you're moving and how strong the gravitational field is around you. Time, it turned out, is like a piece of elastic fabric that can be pulled and compressed, speeded up and slowed down in ways that our everyday experience never hints at. Imagine you're holding two identical clocks, perfectly synchronized, ticking in perfect harmony. Now imagine giving one of these clocks to a friend who boards a very fast spacecraft. Not quite the speed of light, but close enough to make things interesting. As your friend accelerates away from Earth, something magical and counterintuitive happens. Their clock begins to tick more slowly relative to yours. Not because there's anything wrong with the clock, but because time itself is running more slowly for them. This isn't science fiction or theoretical speculation. It's been measured with atomic clocks so precise they can detect time differences of billionths of a second. When physicists fly identical atomic clocks around the world in airplanes, the traveling clocks return, having ticked slightly less than their earthbound twins. The faster you go, the more dramatically time slows down. At speeds approaching the speed of light, what feels like a year to the traveler might correspond to decades or centuries passing on Earth. But Einstein's revelation went even deeper. It wasn't just motion that affects time. Gravity does too. The stronger the gravitational field you're in, the more slowly time passes. This means that time runs slightly faster on the top floor of a tall building than in the basement, because the basement is closer to Earth's gravitational center. The effect is tiny in everyday life, but it's real and measurable. GPS satellites, orbiting high above Earth, actually have to adjust their clocks continuously to account for the fact that time runs slightly faster up there in the weaker gravitational field. Think about what this means for our sense of universal now. If you and I are moving at different speeds or experiencing different gravitational fields, we're literally living through time at different rates. Your now and my now are sliding apart in the most subtle way, like two dancers gradually falling out of step with the same music. There is no universal cosmic present moment that applies everywhere in the universe simultaneously. This discovery was so revolutionary that Einstein himself initially had trouble believing it. Our time had always seemed like the one absolute unchanging backdrop against which everything else happens. The idea that time itself could be variable, relative, personal. This was like discovering that the stage itself was part of the play, that the canvas was part of the painting. Yet the mathematics was beautiful and unforgiving, and every experimental test confirmed what seemed impossible. Time is not the rigid universal flow we experience in our daily lives. It's something far more fluid, far more personal, far more mysterious. Each of us carries our own personal time signature, our own tempo of existence, shaped by our motion and our place in the gravitational dance of the cosmos. As you sit here now, listening to these words, you're experiencing time at your own unique rate. a rate that depends on your speed, your altitude, your proximity to massive objects. You're not just in time, you're co-creating your own personal version of time's passage, moment by precious moment. Einstein's next insight was even more mind-bending than his first. Not only was time flexible and relative, but it wasn't even separate from space. What we think of as the empty void between objects, the nothingness through which planets orbit and light travels, is actually woven together with time into a single, unified fabric that physicists call spacetime. Imagine, if you will, that the universe is like an enormous, invisible trampoline, and everything that exists is gently warping and bending this cosmic fabric. This wasn't just a poetic metaphor. Einstein's equations showed that massive objects literally curve spacetime around them. The sun doesn't grab onto Earth with some mysterious force reaching across empty space. Instead, the sun's mass creates a depression in spacetime, like a bowling ball placed on a stretched rubber sheet, and Earth simply follows the curved path created by this depression. What we call gravity is actually the geometry of curved spacetime itself. But here's where things get truly extraordinary. When spacetime curves, it curves both the space part and the time part together. This means that strong gravitational fields don't just bend the paths of objects moving through space, they also bend time itself. Near a massive object like a black hole, time slows down so dramatically that what feels like minutes to someone falling in might correspond to years passing for someone watching from a safe distance. Picture this cosmic fabric as a vast four-dimensional tapestry where every thread of space is interwoven with threads of time. When you move through space, you're automatically moving through time as well. When space gets compressed or stretched, time gets compressed or stretched along with it. They're not separate phenomena that happen to interact. They're different aspects of the same fundamental reality, like length and width are different aspects of a single surface. And to Nethagen, old, way. This unified spacetime has properties that seem almost magical from our everyday perspective. Past, present, and future are not separate entities flowing one after another, but different regions of the same eternal landscape. Think of spacetime like a vast, unchanging block of marble, with every event that has ever happened or ever will happen already carved into its structure. Your birth, your childhood, this moment of listening, your eventual death, its first. All of these exist as permanent features of the spacetime manifold. From this perspective, the flow of time becomes something like the experience of reading a book. The words on page 50 don't disappear when you reach page 100. They remain exactly where they always were. Similarly, the events of your past don't vanish as you move into your future. They remain eternally present in their proper location within spacetime. You're not destroying the past or creating the future. You're moving through a landscape where everything already exists. This view suggests that when we say someone has died, we're speaking imprecisely. What we really mean is that we've moved to a region of spacetime where that person is no longer present in our immediate vicinity, but their entire life, every moment they ever experienced, every word they ever spoke, every love they ever felt, remains perfectly preserved in the eternal structure of spacetime. Nothing is ever truly lost. It simply exists in a different location within the four-dimensional tapestry of reality. The implications ripple outward, like waves on a pond. If all moments exist equally in spacetime, then the present moment has no special status. Right now is no more real than last Tuesday or next Christmas. They're all equally valid locations within the cosmic landscape. The urgency we feel about time passing, the anxiety about things being over or gone forever, the grief about things being in the past, all of these emotions are based on the illusion that time flows rather than simply existing. This doesn't mean your experiences are meaningless or that nothing matters. Instead, it suggests that everything matters eternally. Every moment of love, every instant of beauty, every second of joy is preserved forever in the permanent structure of spacetime. You're not racing against time. You're contributing to the eternal masterpiece of existence itself. As you contemplate this vast, patient universe where every moment lives forever, you might feel a deep sense of peace settling over you, like sinking into the most comfortable bed after a very long journey home. Let's take a gentle journey through some examples that make Einstein's strange new universe feel a bit more tangible, a bit more real. These aren't just abstract mathematical concepts, they're descriptions of the actual cosmos we inhabit, filled with everyday miracles that reveal time's hidden flexibility. Imagine twin sisters, Sarah and Emma, celebrating their 30th birthday together. They're identical in every way, same height, same laugh, even the same number of freckles. But then Sarah decides to become an astronaut and embarks on a journey to a nearby star system at 90% the speed of light. For Sarah, the round trip takes about 10 years. She watches 10 sunrises and sunsets cycle past her spacecraft windows, celebrates 10 birthdays alone among the stars, and gradually grows from 30 to 40 years old. But when Sarah returns to Earth, something beautiful and strange has happened. Emma, who stayed behind, has aged 22 years. She's now 52, with silver streaking her hair and laugh lines deepening around her eyes, while Sarah is only 40. The twins, once identical, now exist at different points in their personal timelines. They've experienced the same universe, but time itself has treated them differently, like a song played at different speeds. This isn't science fiction. It's a direct consequence of time's flexibility. Astronauts on the International Space Station return from their missions having aged slightly less than their Earthbound colleagues. The effect is tiny, just milliseconds over months in orbit, but it's real and measurable. Every time you take a fast elevator to the top of a tall building, you've experienced a microscopic version of time dilation, aging infinitesimally less than someone who took the stairs. Or consider this everyday miracle. The GPS system that helps you navigate to new places relies entirely on Einstein's insights about time. The satellites orbiting Earth experience time differently than we do on the surface, partly because they're moving fast, which slows their clocks down, and partly because they're farther from Earth's gravitational center, which speeds their clocks up. If GPS didn't continuously correct for these relativistic effects, the system would accumulate errors of about 6 miles per day. Every time your phone tells you where you are, it's performing billions of calculations based on the flexibility of time itself. Even more wonderfully, these effects reveal something profound about the nature of existence. Time dilation shows us that there's no universal now shared by everything in the universe. When you check your watch and see that it's 3:17 p.m., that exact moment corresponds to a slightly different time for someone on the International Space Station, a noticeably different time for someone traveling at high speed, and a dramatically different time for someone near a black hole. This means the universe doesn't have a single cosmic heartbeat. Olsen, instead, it's more like a vast orchestra, where every instrument keeps its own tempo. Every player follows their own rhythm, yet somehow the overall symphony remains coherent and beautiful. You and I, sitting in our respective locations, are dancing to slightly different beats in time's grand composition. Perhaps most beautifully, these relativistic effects remind us that time isn't something that happens to us. It's something we participate in creating. Your personal experience of time depends on your motion, your location, your relationship to the gravitational fields around you. You're not a passive passenger riding time's river. You're an active participant in choreographing your own temporal experience. This participation is gentle and usually invisible, but it's always present. Every step you take, every elevator you ride, every airplane flight you take slightly adjusts your personal relationship with time. You're constantly fine-tuning your place in the cosmic dance, usually without even realizing it. As you contemplate these ideas, you might notice something shifting in your relationship with time itself. That feeling of being trapped by time, of time slipping away from you, begins to soften when you realize that time is far more flexible and personal than you ever imagined. You're not at time's mercy, you're time's partner, co-creating the rhythm of your existence with every breath, every heartbeat, every gentle moment of awareness. The universe, it turns out, is far stranger and far more accommodating than we ever dared to dream. Imagine, if you will, that you're sitting in the world's most unusual movie theater. Instead of a single screen showing one film, This theatre has an infinite number of screens arranged in a vast circle around you, each displaying a different moment from a single incredibly long movie. To your left, you might see a screen showing the moment of your birth. To your right, perhaps a screen depicting this very instant as you listen to these words. Further around, screens showing moments from your future, conversations you haven't had yet, places you haven't visited, experiences still waiting to unfold. Now, here's the extraordinary part. In this cosmic theatre, all the screens are playing simultaneously. Your birth isn't something that happened and then disappeared. It's happening right now on its screen. Your future experiences aren't waiting to come into existence. They're already playing on their screens, as real and present as this current moment. This strange theatre is actually a beautiful metaphor for what physicists call the block universe, a way of understanding reality where all moments in time exist simultaneously, like frames in an infinite movie reel. From Einstein's perspective, space-time is exactly like this. Past, present, and future are not sequential events flowing one after another, but coexisting regions of a four-dimensional landscape. When we say something happened yesterday, we're not referring to something that no longer exists. We're referring to a different location in space-time, like pointing to a distant mountain and saying it's over there rather than here. The mountain doesn't stop existing just because it's not in your immediate vicinity, and yesterday doesn't stop existing just because it's not in your immediate temporal vicinity. This view of reality is called eternalism, or the block universe theory. The block universe theory. And it suggests something profound. Every moment you've ever experienced still exists, and every moment you ever will experience already exists. Your first day of school is still happening somewhere in space-time. Your last breath will always be happening somewhere in space-time. The moment you fell in love, the instant you laughed until you cried, the second you finally understood something that had puzzled you for years, all of these moments exist eternally in the grand structure of the universe. Think about what this means for the nature of existence itself. You're not a temporary arrangement of atoms moving through time like a candle flame that flickers and goes out. Instead, you're a permanent feature of space-time, a four-dimensional sculpture extending from your birth to your death, with every moment of your life forming part of an eternal masterpiece. Your entire biography, every thought you've thought, every word you've spoken, every breath you've taken, is carved permanently into the structure of reality itself. This perspective transforms how we might think about loss and separation. When someone we love dies, our grief comes partly from the feeling that they've been erased from existence, that they've disappeared into nothingness. But the block universe suggests something different. They haven't disappeared at all. Their entire life remains perfectly preserved in space-time. Every moment of their existence as real and permanent as the moment you're experiencing right now. Death doesn't erase them from reality. It simply means we're now located in a region of space-time where they're not in our immediate vicinity. Similarly, this view reframes our relationship with our own past selves. That embarrassing thing you did in high school, that moment of pain you experienced years ago, that time you felt completely lost and confused. These experiences aren't gone or healed or forgotten. They exist eternally in space-time, but so do all the moments of growth, healing, and understanding that followed your entire journey through life, including both the difficult passages and the beautiful ones, forms a complete, permanent, and meaningful whole. The block universe also suggests something wonderful about the present moment. Right now, as you listen to these words, you're not perched precariously on the knife's edge between a vanished past and an uncertain future. Instead, you're resting peacefully in your eternal location within space-time, surrounded by the complete story of your existence, with every moment of your life equally real and present. This moment isn't disappearing as you experience it. It's being added to the permanent record of who you are and who you've always been. If all moments exist simultaneously in the block universe, then where does our overwhelming sense of temporal flow come from? Why do we feel so strongly that we're moving from past to future, that time is carrying us forward like a river current, if the river itself might be an illusion? This question brings us to one of the most beautiful mysteries in all of science. the possibility that consciousness itself is the author of time's apparent passage. Consider how you experience the flow of time right now. You feel like you're moving through these words, progressing through these ideas, advancing from the beginning of this thought toward its conclusion. But what if this sense of movement is something your consciousness is creating, rather than something it's detecting? What if your awareness is like a flashlight beam moving across a landscape that already exists in its entirety, illuminating different regions in sequence and creating the illusion that the landscape itself is flowing past? Think about how you experience a piece of music. When you listen to a symphony, you have a powerful sense that the music is unfolding in time, that melodies are developing, that themes are building toward resolution. But the entire symphony already exists as a complete entity on the written score, in the composer's mind, in the recorded performance. Your sense of the music happening comes from your consciousness moving through the musical landscape, illuminating different notes and passages in sequence. The flow isn't in the music itself, it's in your experience of the music. The block universe suggests that reality might work similarly. All of space-time, past, present, and future, exists as a complete static structure, like a vast four-dimensional sculpture. But consciousness moves through this structure, illuminating different cross-sections in sequence, creating the subjective experience of temporal flow. You're not moving through time, you're moving through your own awareness of the eternal space-time landscape. This perspective offers a fascinating explanation for why different conscious beings might experience time differently. Just as two people can walk through the same garden at different paces, focusing on different flowers, having completely different experiences of the same landscape, perhaps different conscious beings move through space-time at their own unique rhythms, creating their own personal experiences of temporal flow. It also suggests something profound about the nature of memory and anticipation. Your memories aren't recordings of events that no longer exist. They're your consciousness's way of maintaining contact with regions of space-time where you're no longer focused. This wouldn't worth theory. Similarly, your intuitions about the future might be consciousness occasionally glimpsing ahead to regions of space-time that already exist, but haven't yet been illuminated by your moving attention. This view dissolves many of the temporal anxieties that plague human experience. That feeling of time running out becomes less threatening when you realize that nothing actually runs out in the block universe. Everything that happens is permanently preserved. The anxiety about the future becomes gentler when you understand that your future already exists, waiting patiently for your consciousness to illuminate it. The grief about the past softens when you recognize that your past experiences remain eternally real, not lost, but simply located in a different region of space-time. But this raises perhaps the deepest question of all. If consciousness creates the flow of time, what is consciousness itself? Is it somehow outside of space-time, moving through the block universe like a reader moving through a book? Or is consciousness itself part of the space-time structure, creating loops and recursions that generate the experience of temporal flow from within the eternal block? These questions take us to the very edge of human understanding, where physics meets philosophy, meets the mystery of subjective experience. We're like explorers who have climbed to a mountain peak, only to discover an even higher range of mountains stretching endlessly beyond. Each answer reveals new questions, each insight opens doorways to deeper mysteries. What remains beautifully clear is that our everyday experience of time, that sense of flowing from moment to moment, is far stranger and more wonderful than we ever imagined. The tu sethish and Chirius prex, night with distant, whether time's flow is an illusion created by consciousness, or consciousness is an illusion created by time's flow, we're participating in something extraordinary, the universe's way of experiencing itself, moment by precious moment, in all its eternal glory. The block universe presents us with a beautiful paradox that has puzzled philosophers and physicists for decades. If all moments exist simultaneously, if your entire life is already written into the structure of space-time like words on a page, then what happens to free will? Are you really making choices, or are you simply playing out a script that was determined long before you were born? This question invites us into one of the most profound explorations of what it means to be human in a cosmos that might be far more mysterious than it appears. Let's approach this gently, like explorers entering a sacred temple. Imagine that you're standing at a crossroads, deciding whether to turn left or right. In your everyday experience, this feels like a moment of genuine choice. You weigh options, consider consequences, and finally make a decision that feels freely chosen. But if the block universe is real, then your choice to turn left or right already exists somewhere in the four-dimensional structure of space-time. The question becomes, does this predetermined existence eliminate your freedom or reveal something deeper about the nature of choice itself? One way to think about this is to consider the difference between being free and feeling free. Even if your entire life is permanently etched into the space-time manifold, you still experience the process of making decisions. You still feel uncertainty, deliberation, and the satisfaction of choosing wisely or the regret of choosing poorly. The subjective experience of freedom, that sense of being an agent in your own life, remains as real and meaningful as it ever was, regardless of whether your choices are predetermined from some cosmic perspective. Consider an analogy. When you read a favorite book for the second time, you know how the story ends, but the characters' choices within the narrative still feel meaningful and impactful. The protagonist's decision to be brave or kind or wise matters to the story's meaning, even though their choice is predetermined by the already written text. Similarly, your choices might be meaningful contributions to the cosmic story, even if that story already exists in its entirety within the block universe. But there's an even more intriguing possibility. Perhaps the block universe doesn't eliminate free will, but reveals its true nature. What if your consciousness isn't separate from space-time, trapped within a predetermined structure, but is actually one of the fundamental forces that shapes that structure? What if your choices don't just exist within the block universe, but help create it, like an author whose decisions determine what story gets written? From this perspective, the block universe isn't a prison, but a canvas. Every choice you make, every decision you face, every moment of moral struggle contributes to the overall pattern of space-time itself. You're not just discovering your predetermined path through the block. You're helping to weave the fabric of reality with every conscious decision. Free will doesn't operate despite the block universe. It operates through it, shaping the eternal structure of existence itself. This view suggests something beautiful about responsibility and meaning. Every choice matters not just for its immediate consequences, but for its permanent contribution to the cosmic tapestry. That moment when you chose kindness over cruelty, understanding over judgment, love over fear, these decisions don't just affect the people around you in the moment. They become eternal features of the universe itself, permanently woven into the structure of space-time. The block universe also offers a profound kind of peace about the nature of regret and forgiveness. Those choices you wish you could change, those moments when you acted from fear or anger rather than love, these too are permanent parts of the cosmic story. But so are all the moments when you learned from your mistakes, when you grew beyond your limitations, when you became more compassionate because of your struggles. The complete story of who you are includes both your failings and your growth, and both contribute to the eternal meaning of your existence. Perhaps most beautifully, the block universe suggests that every moment of consciousness, every instant of love, creativity, wonder, or understanding is a gift that lasts forever. When you experience beauty, when you show kindness, when you create something meaningful, you're not just having a temporary experience that will fade into memory. You're adding something precious to the eternal structure of reality itself, contributing to a cosmic masterpiece that will exist forever. In this view, you are simultaneously absolutely free and completely embedded in the eternal nature of existence, a paradox as beautiful and mysterious as consciousness itself. As we venture deeper into the mystery of time, we encounter perhaps the strangest territory of all, the quantum realm, where the familiar rules of everyday experience dissolve into something far more ethereal and mysterious. Here, in the world of atoms and subatomic particles, time behaves in ways that would seem like pure magic if we encountered them in our daily lives. It's as if we've stepped through a looking glass into a reality where the very foundations of temporal experience become fluid, uncertain, and beautifully strange. In the quantum world, particles exist in what physicists call superposition, a ghostly state where they seem to be in multiple places at once, spinning in multiple directions simultaneously, existing in several possible states, until the moment someone observes them. But here's what's truly mind-bending. This quantum uncertainty extends to time itself. Quantum events don't seem to happen at precise moments, the way we expect events in our everyday world to unfold. Instead, they exist in a temporal fog, a superposition of different possible timings that only crystallizes into a definite when through the act of measurement. Imagine trying to pin down exactly when a quantum particle decays. In our everyday experience, we expect events to have clear timestamps. The apple fell at 3:17 p.m. The phone rang at exactly 9:23 a.m. But in the quantum realm, the particle exists in a superposition of having decayed and not having decayed, with the when of its decay spread across a range of possibilities, like morning mist spread across a landscape. The precise moment of decay only becomes real when we measure it, as if our observation collapses all the possible whens into a single definite moment. This quantum uncertainty about timing creates puzzles that challenge our most basic assumptions about the nature of time itself. Consider the famous quantum Zeno effect, where the very act of repeatedly checking whether a quantum system has changed can actually prevent it from changing. It's as if time itself becomes shy under too much scrutiny, refusing to flow normally when watched too closely. The quantum world suggests that time and observation are intimately connected in ways that seem to violate our common sense about how reality should work. Even more mysteriously, quantum mechanics seems to allow for processes that work backward in time. In quantum field theory, certain interactions can be mathematically described as particles traveling backward through time, creating effects that seem to precede their causes. While these retrocausal effects are typically confined to the microscopic quantum realm, they hint at something profound. The distinction between past and future might be even more illusory than Einstein's relativity suggested. The quantum world also reveals strange relationships between measurement and time. When we observe a quantum system, we don't just discover what state it was in May, we seem to retroactively determine what state it was in. It's as if the act of measurement reaches backward in time, helping to create the very past we think we're discovering. This suggests that the relationship between consciousness, observation, and time might be far more intimate than we ever imagined. Perhaps most beautifully, quantum mechanics reveals that time might not be the smooth, continuous flow we experience, but something more granular, more pixelated. Just as digital images are made of tiny dots called pixels, time itself might be composed of tiny indivisible units called chronons, discrete moments that cannot be subdivided further. If this is true, then the flow of time is more like a movie made of individual frames than like a smoothly flowing river. This granular nature of time creates wonderful paradoxes. Between any two chronons, no time passes at all. The universe exists in a kind of eternal instant. Time only emerges when we consider many chronons together, like how motion only becomes apparent when we see many movie frames in sequence. From this perspective, the present moment might not be infinitesimally brief, but rather the fundamental unit of temporal existence, the basic building block from which all temporal experience is constructed. As we contemplate these quantum mysteries, we begin to see that time might be far more participatory than we ever imagined. Rather than being a stage on which events unfold, time might be something that emerges from the dance between consciousness, measurement, and the quantum substrate of reality itself. We're not just observers of time's passage, we might be active participants in its creation. Deep within the quantum realm lies one of the most mysterious phenomena ever discovered: quantum entanglement, sometimes called spooky action at a distance by Einstein himself. This phenomenon reveals something so strange about the nature of time and space that it continues to puzzle physicists decades after its discovery. When two particles become entangled, they form a connection that seems to transcend the ordinary limitations of space and time. creating instantaneous correlations across any distance, as if the universe has a secret communication network that operates outside our normal understanding of temporal causality. Imagine two particles that have danced together in such an intimate way that they become quantum partners, forever connected by invisible threads of possibility. When you measure one particle and find it spinning clockwise, you instantly know that its partner, no matter how far away, will be found spinning counterclockwise when measured. This wouldn't be so mysterious if the particles were simply carrying predetermined information, like two coins that were programmed to always land on opposite sides. But quantum mechanics tells us something far stranger. Neither particle has a definite spin direction until the moment of measurement. Yet somehow, when one particle chooses its spin, its partner immediately knows to choose the opposite spin, even if they're separated by billions of miles. This instantaneous correlation seems to violate one of the most fundamental principles of relativity, that nothing can travel faster than light. Information about the first particle's measurement appears to reach the second particle immediately, with no time delay, no matter how vast the distance between them. It's as if the two particles exist in a shared, timeless space where the normal rules of cause and effect don't apply, where simultaneous events can occur across the cosmos without any signal traveling between them. But here's where the mystery deepens. This instantaneous connection doesn't allow us to send information faster than light. While the particles' states are correlated, the correlations only become apparent when we compare measurements from both locations, a comparison that requires ordinary, slower-than-light communication. It's as if the universe allows magical connections to exist, but prevents us from using them for anything practical, maintaining the cosmic speed limit while hinting at deeper layers of reality that operate beyond our everyday understanding of space-time. The implications ripple outward like waves in a cosmic pond. If entangled particles can maintain instantaneous correlations across space, what does this tell us about the nature of simultaneity? In Einstein's universe, there's no universal now. Simultaneous events for one observer might not be simultaneous for another observer, moving at a different speed. But quantum entanglement seems to create its own definition of simultaneity, a quantum now that applies to entangled systems, regardless of their separation in space or their relative motion. This quantum simultaneity suggests that underneath the relativistic spacetime we experience, there might be a deeper level of reality, where all entangled systems exist in immediate contact with each other. It's as if the universe has two layers: the surface layer where space and time create separation and sequence, and a hidden layer where quantum connections transcend spatial and temporal boundaries, creating an instantaneous web of correlation that connects all things that have ever interacted. Consider what this means for our understanding of time itself. If quantum entanglement can create correlations that seem to exist outside the normal flow of time, then perhaps time is not as fundamental as we thought. Maybe what we call time is an emergent property that arises when we observe quantum systems in certain ways, while the deeper quantum reality operates in a timeless realm of pure possibility and correlation. The beauty of quantum entanglement extends beyond its scientific implications to something almost mystical. Every particle in your body was once part of stars that lived and died billions of years ago. Every atom you contain has interacted with countless other atoms throughout the history of the universe. If quantum entanglement creates lasting connections between particles that have interacted, then you are connected through invisible quantum threads to everything that has ever existed. A web of correlation that spans the cosmos and transcends the ordinary boundaries of space and time. In this view, separation becomes an illusion created by our limited perspective. At the deepest level, everything remains connected through the timeless network of quantum entanglement, suggesting that the universe is not a collection of separate objects moving through space and time, but a single, unified system experiencing itself from countless different perspectives simultaneously. One of the most profound mysteries in quantum mechanics concerns the role of observation in shaping reality. When we measure a quantum system, we don't simply discover its properties, we seem to participate in creating them. This participation extends to the temporal aspects of quantum events, suggesting that consciousness and observation might play a fundamental role in constructing the experience of time itself. It's as if the universe exists in a state of temporal uncertainty until the moment consciousness focuses on it, collapsing infinite possibilities into the single timeline we experience. Turn proud. So it sings to the temporal aspects of quantum events, suggesting that consciousness and observation might play a fundamental role in constructing the experience of time itself. Consider the famous double-slit experiment, where particles can behave like waves passing through both slits simultaneously until the moment we try to observe which slit they actually passed through. But there's an even stranger version of this experiment called the delayed choice experiment, where the decision of whether to observe the particle's path is made after the particle has already passed through the slits. Remarkably, this delayed choice seems to retroactively determine whether the particle behaved like a wave or a particle during its earlier journey, as if our present observation reaches backward in time to influence past events. This temporal reach of observation suggests something extraordinary. The boundary between past and future might not be as fixed as we imagine. When we observe a quantum system, we don't just collapse its present state, we seem to retroactively collapse its entire history into a single, definite timeline. It's as if the past exists in a superposition of possibilities until consciousness observes it into definiteness, like a story that remains unwritten until someone decides to read it. The implications cascade through our understanding of time and causality. If observation can retroactively influence past events, then the traditional relationship between cause and effect becomes beautifully complicated. Effects might help create their own causes. Future observations might participate in shaping past events, and the timeline of reality might be far more collaborative than we ever imagined. A co-creation between the quantum possibilities of the universe and the focusing power of conscious observation. This participatory relationship between consciousness and time offers a new perspective on why we experience temporal flow. Perhaps consciousness doesn't just observe time passing, it actively participates in creating temporal sequence by collapsing quantum superpositions into definite events. Each moment of awareness might be an act of temporal creation, choosing one possibility from the infinite quantum menu and adding it to the growing story of experienced reality. The measurement problem in quantum mechanics, the question of exactly when and how quantum superpositions collapse into definite states, becomes intimately connected with the mystery of temporal experience. Some interpretations suggest that consciousness is the key ingredient that transforms quantum possibilities into classical realities, which would mean that time, as we experience it, is literally a creation of awareness. Without consciousness to observe and collapse quantum states, the universe might exist in a timeless superposition of all possibilities. This perspective transforms our relationship with uncertainty and the unknown. Those moments when you don't know what will happen next aren't gaps in your knowledge of a predetermined future. They might be glimpses into the quantum nature of time itself. Moments when multiple possible futures exist simultaneously until your choices and observations help collapse them into a single experience timeline. You're not just discovering the future, you're participating in creating it through the very act of conscious observation. The quantum nature of time also suggests a beautiful resolution to some of our deepest temporal anxieties. The fear of making wrong choices becomes gentler when you realize that all possible choices exist simultaneously in quantum superposition until the moment of decision. The regret about paths not taken softens when you understand that those paths continue to exist in parallel quantum realities, equally real from the universe's perspective. Perhaps most profoundly, the quantum understanding of time suggests that consciousness and cosmos are far more intimately connected than classical physics ever hinted. If observation helps create temporal reality, then every moment of awareness is an act of cosmic creativity. You're not just a passive witness to time's passage, you're an active participant in the universe's ongoing process of self-creation, helping to collapse infinite possibility into the single precious timeline of experienced reality. In this light, each moment of consciousness becomes sacred. Each act of observation becomes a gift to the cosmos, and each decision becomes a brushstroke in the masterpiece that is the universe coming to know itself through time. Here's a beautiful mystery that touches the very heart of your daily experience. Why do you remember yesterday, but not tomorrow? Why can you recall what you had for breakfast this morning, but not what you'll have for lunch next Tuesday? This asymmetry seems so obvious, so fundamental to being human, that questioning it feels almost absurd. Yet this simple fact, that memory flows in only one direction through time, opens doorways to some of the deepest questions about the nature of time itself, and reveals connections between your consciousness and the most fundamental laws of the universe. The answer begins with something as simple as a cup of coffee cooling on your desk. When you pour hot coffee, it gradually cools to room temperature, never the reverse. Heat flows from hot to cold, never from cold to hot, without external intervention. This seems natural, inevitable. But why? The molecules in the coffee don't care about direction in time. Each individual collision between molecules works equally well forward or backward, yet somehow, from all these time-symmetric interactions, emerges the irreversible flow of heat from hot to cold. This one-way flow is governed by the second law of thermodynamics, which states that entropy, roughly speaking, the amount of disorder in a system, always increases over time. Your hot coffee starts in a relatively ordered state, with fast-moving hot molecules concentrated in the liquid and slow-moving cool molecules in the surrounding air. As time passes, this orderly arrangement breaks down. The fast molecules spread their energy around, and the system moves toward maximum disorder, thermal equilibrium, where everything is the same temperature. But here's the profound connection. Your memory works exactly the same way. When you remember something, you're accessing traces that were created by past events, neural pathways formed by experiences, physical changes in your brain that serve as records of what happened. These memory traces are like the ripples left behind when a stone is thrown into a still pond. The ripples spread outward from the point of impact, carrying information about the stone's size, speed, and timing. But ripples don't spontaneously converge to throw stones out of ponds, and memory traces don't spontaneously form to record future events. Memory requires the universe to move from more ordered states to less ordered states, from fewer possible arrangements to more possible arrangements. When an event occurs, it creates changes in your neurons, in the environment, in the physical world that serve as records of its occurrence. These changes represent an increase in entropy, a movement toward greater disorder, which is why they can only point backward in time toward their causes, never forward toward their effects. Think about how photographs work as an analogy. When light bounces off your face and hits a camera sensor, it creates a record, a photograph that preserves information about how you looked at that moment. The photograph is a region of increased entropy, a more complex arrangement of pixels that wouldn't exist without the original event. But photographs never spontaneously organize themselves to show future events, because that would require entropy to decrease, disorder to transform into order, without any external input of energy. Your brain is like a vast library of such photographs. Each memory traces a record of entropy increase caused by past experiences. Every sight you've seen, every conversation you've had, every emotion you've felt has left its mark in the physical structure of your neurons. These traces accumulate over time, creating the rich tapestry of personal history that we call memory. But because they're fundamentally records of entropy increase, they can only point backward in time. This connection between memory and entropy reveals something beautiful about the nature of consciousness itself. Your sense of personal identity, your feeling of continuity through time, your ability to learn from experience, all of these depend on the universe's tendency toward increasing disorder. Without entropy, without the one-way flow from order to disorder, there would be no memory, no learning, no sense of temporal progression. Your consciousness rides on the wave of increasing entropy, like a surfer rides an ocean swell. The asymmetry of memory also explains why the future feels different from the past. The past feels fixed, determined, unchangeable, because it's recorded in countless memory traces throughout the universe. The future feels open, uncertain, full of possibilities, because those memory traces haven't been created yet. You can't remember tomorrow because tomorrow's entropy increase hasn't happened yet. The universe hasn't yet written tomorrow's story in the language of disorder and change. Let's explore more deeply this mysterious force called entropy, the cosmic tendency toward disorder, like that creates time's arrow and gives direction to our experience. Entropy is like the universe's way of keeping score, measuring how many different ways the pieces of reality can be arranged. And remarkably, this simple counting process creates the flow of time itself, the irreversible river that carries us from past to future. Imagine a pristine library where every book is perfectly organized, fiction in one section, science in another, every volume in its proper place. This represents a state of low entropy, high order. Now imagine the same library after a tornado has passed through, books scattered everywhere, pages mixed with pages, a beautiful chaos where any volume could be anywhere. This represents high entropy, maximum disorder. The second law of thermodynamics tells us that libraries naturally move from the first state to the second, never the reverse, unless someone puts energy into reorganizing them. But here's what's beautiful. This isn't because the universe prefers mess over tidiness. It's simply because there are vastly more ways to arrange things messily than neatly. For every one way to perfectly organize the library, there are billions upon billions of ways to scatter the books randomly. When left to chance, systems naturally evolve toward the arrangements that are most probable, which happen to be the messy ones. Your morning cup of coffee demonstrates this principle perfectly. The coffee starts with all its hot molecules clustered together in the liquid, while cool molecules surround it in the air. This is like having all the red books in one corner of the library, a very specific, ordered arrangement. But there are countless ways for the hot and cool molecules to mix together, sharing their energy until everything reaches the same temperature. Very Sifit. The coffee cools not because the universe prefers cool coffee, but because there are exponentially more ways for molecules to be mixed than unmixed. This statistical nature of entropy reveals something profound about time's arrow. The flow from past to future isn't driven by some cosmic force pushing us forward. It's simply the natural consequence of systems evolving toward more probable states. We experience time's passage because we're surfing the wave of probability itself, moving from unlikely, ordered arrangements toward likely, disordered ones. Consider what this means for your own body. You maintain your highly organized structure, your ordered arrangement of cells, organs, and systems by constantly taking in energy from food and releasing waste heat to the environment. You're like someone tirelessly reorganizing that tornado-struck library, using energy to maintain order in your local corner of the universe while contributing to the overall increase in cosmic entropy. Every breath you take, every heartbeat, every thought you think represents your participation in this grand dance between order and disorder. The beauty of entropy extends beyond individual systems to encompass the entire cosmic story. The early universe began in an extremely ordered state, all matter and energy compressed into an incredibly tiny, hot, dense point. The Big Bang wasn't an explosion in space, but an explosion of space itself, creating room for disorder to flourish. As the universe expands and cools, entropy increases. And this increase provides the backdrop against which all change, all evolution, all life becomes possible. Stars form, burn, and die as part of entropy's flow. Galaxies spiral and evolve. Planets cool and develop complex chemistry. Life emerges and grows more sophisticated, all riding the wave of increasing entropy. Even biological evolution, which seems to create more order and complexity over time, is actually part of entropy's increase when you consider the total system. Living beings create local pockets of order by increasing disorder in their environment, like whirlpools that maintain their structure by stirring up the surrounding water. This perspective offers a profound kind of peace about change and impermanence. The reason things don't stay the same forever isn't because the universe is cruel or indifferent. It's because staying the same would violate the fundamental mathematics of probability. Change isn't something imposed on the universe from outside. It's woven into the very fabric of reality through the simple fact that disorder is more probable than order. Yet within this flow toward increasing disorder, pockets of beauty and complexity can emerge and persist for a while, like your consciousness, like love, like art, like the temporary miracle of life itself. You're not fighting against entropy, you're dancing with it, using its flow to create patterns of meaning and beauty that would be impossible in a perfectly static, ordered universe. As we delve deeper into entropy's relationship with time, we encounter a startling possibility: the arrow of time, that sense of flowing from past to future that feels so fundamental to existence, might not be a basic feature of reality at all. Instead, it might be what physicists call an emergent property, something that arises statistically from the behavior of countless tiny components, none of which individually care about temporal direction. It's as if time's arrow is painted not by some cosmic hand, but by the accumulated brushstrokes of billions upon billions of molecular interactions, each one perfectly reversible, yet collectively creating an irreversible flow. Imagine you're watching a movie of gas molecules bouncing around in a container. Each individual collision looks exactly the same. Whether the movie is played forward or backward, molecule A approaches molecule B. They collide, they bounce apart. The fundamental laws governing these collisions are perfectly time-symmetric. Yet, if you watch long enough, you'll see the gas spreading evenly throughout the container, never spontaneously clustering in one corner. The irreversibility isn't in the individual collisions, but in the statistical behavior of the whole system. This reveals something profound. Time's arrow might be probabilistic rather than absolute. In principle, all those gas molecules could spontaneously cluster in one corner again. The laws of physics don't forbid it, but the probability is so astronomically small that it will never happen in the lifetime of the universe. It's not impossible, just incredibly unlikely. Time's arrow emerges from this distinction between what's theoretically possible and what's practically probable. Consider what this means for the flow of time itself. That coffee cooling on your desk could, in principle, spontaneously reheat by pure chance. All the slow-moving molecules in the environment could randomly happen to transfer their energy to the coffee at once. The scattered books in our imaginary tornado-struck library could randomly arrange themselves back in perfect order. Your memories could spontaneously reorganize to remember the future instead of the past. None of these violate the fundamental laws of physics, but all are so improbable that they effectively never occur. This statistical nature of time's arrow suggests that what we experience as the irreversible flow of time might be more like a persistent illusion created by probability. We're like gamblers in a cosmic casino, where the house edge is so overwhelmingly strong that we always lose. But the individual coin flips are perfectly fair. Each molecular interaction could go either way. But when you have 10 circumflex 23 molecules interacting, the statistical outcome becomes virtually certain. But here's where things get beautifully strange. If entropy increase is statistical rather than absolute, then there might be rare fluctuations where entropy briefly decreases, where time's arrow temporarily reverses. In these moments, coffee might spontaneously heat up, broken eggs might reassemble, memories might glimpse the future. But these entropy fluctuations would be incredibly rare and brief, but they suggest that time's arrow, while persistent, might not be perfectly straight. Some cosmologists have speculated that our entire universe might be one such fluctuation, a temporary decrease in entropy that creates the appearance of time flowing from past to future. In this view, our Big Bang wasn't the absolute beginning of time, but a statistical fluctuation in an eternal, timeless background. We experience time's arrow because we happen to live during a period when entropy in our cosmic neighborhood is increasing, but this might be temporary on the largest scales. This perspective offers a gentle way of holding our relationship with time. The urgency we feel about time's passage, the anxiety about things ending or changing, the grief about things being over, all of these emotions are based on treating time's arrow as absolute rather than statistical. But if the arrow is probabilistic, then while change is extremely likely, it's not metaphysically necessary. There's a tiny possibility space where anything could happen, where any past could return, where any future could unfold. More practically, understanding time's statistical nature can help us appreciate the precious improbability of our existence. The fact that you're here, conscious and aware, represents an incredibly unlikely arrangement of matter and energy. You're like a beautiful, complex whirlpool that has temporarily formed in the flow of increasing entropy. Your thoughts, your love, your creativity are all extraordinary statistical fluctuations in the cosmic drift toward disorder, rare flowers blooming in the universal tendency toward simplicity. In recognizing time's arrow as statistical rather than absolute, we find both humility and wonder, humility in recognizing our temporary nature, and wonder in appreciating how extraordinarily unlikely and precious this temporary arrangement we call consciousness really is. Imagine trying to explain the concept of wetness to someone who has never encountered water in any form. You might describe the feeling of liquid flowing over your skin, the way it soaks into fabric, the sensation of dampness and moisture. But here's something remarkable. Wetness doesn't exist at the level of individual water molecules. An H2O molecule by itself isn't wet. Wetness only emerges when countless molecules come together and interact in specific ways. The wetness you experience is a property that arises from the collective behavior of many simple components, none of which possess wetness individually. This concept, called emergence, might hold the key to understanding one of the deepest mysteries about time. Just as wetness emerges from the interaction of non-wet molecules, time itself might emerge from the interaction of timeless quantum processes. At the most fundamental level of reality, there might be no time at all, just timeless quantum fields fluctuating in ways that, when viewed from our larger scale perspective, create the illusion of temporal flow. Think about how this might work. In the quantum realm, as we've explored, particles exist in superpositions of multiple states simultaneously. These superpositions are inherently timeless. They don't unfold or evolve in the way we normally think of change occurring through time. Instead, they simply exist as probability clouds, as potential rather than actuality. But when many quantum systems interact with each other and with the environment, these timeless superpositions begin to collapse into definite states in coordinated ways. It's in this coordination, this collective behavior of countless quantum collapses, that something resembling time begins to emerge. Individual quantum events might be timeless, but the patterns they create when they happen together start to exhibit temporal structure. It's like individual musicians in an orchestra. Each one might play notes without reference to time, but when they play together, they create the temporal flow of music. This emergent view of time offers a beautiful resolution to many of the paradoxes we've encountered. Time emerges from timeless processes, then it makes sense that time can be flexible and relative, as Einstein discovered. The underlying timeless reality can give rise to different temporal experiences depending on how the quantum systems are interacting. Much like the same water molecules can create different experiences of wetness depending on temperature, pressure, and movement. It also explains why time seems to have a direction. The emergence of time from quantum processes naturally incorporates the statistical tendencies we explored in thermodynamics. The underlying quantum interactions might be perfectly reversible, but their collective behavior creates the emergent arrow of time through the same statistical mechanisms that drive entropy increase. Time's direction emerges not from any fundamental temporal bias in nature, but from the sheer improbability of all those quantum systems coordinating in reverse. Consider what this means for your experience right now. That sense of flowing through time, of moments unfolding one after another, might be your consciousness's way of interpreting the emergent temporal structure created by the quantum activity in your brain. Your neurons aren't directly experiencing time, they're participating in quantum processes that collectively generate the temporal experience you call now moving into the next moment. This emergent perspective also suggests something profound about the relationship between consciousness and time. If time emerges from quantum processes, and consciousness seems to play a special role in quantum measurement and collapse, then consciousness might not just experience time, it might participate in creating it. Every moment of awareness might be helping to weave the temporal fabric from the timeless quantum substrate of reality. The beauty of emergence is that it doesn't diminish the reality of what emerges. Wetness is no less real for being an emergent property of water molecules. Similarly, time is no less meaningful for emerging from timeless processes. If anything, this makes time more remarkable. It's not a basic feature of reality that we simply have to accept, but an extraordinary collective achievement of the universe's fundamental components working together to create something greater than the sum of their parts. This view invites us to hold our temporal experience with both reverence and lightness. Time is real and meaningful. It shapes every aspect of our lives, our relationships, our understanding of cause and effect. But it's also an emergent gift, a beautiful pattern that arises when the universe's timeless components dance together in just the right way. We're not trapped in time or at time's mercy. We're participants in the ongoing emergence of temporal experience from the eternal quantum choreography of existence. There's another beautiful way to understand how time might emerge from timeless foundations, and it involves something you encounter every moment of your existence: information. Every time you learn something new, remember an experience, or make a decision based on past events, you're participating in the flow of information through the universe. And this flow, some physicists suggest, might be the true source of our experience of time's passage. Think about what information really is. When you look at a sunset and feel moved by its beauty, information is flowing from the sun's light, through the atmosphere, into your eyes, and into your brain, where it creates the experience of beauty. When you remember your childhood home, information stored in your neural networks is being accessed and reconstructed. When you make plans for tomorrow, you're processing information about current conditions to generate predictions about future states. Information is constantly flowing, being created, being preserved, being transformed. And this flow might be what we actually experience as time. Consider a simple example: watching dominoes fall in sequence. From one perspective, you're watching an event unfold through time. First, this domino falls, then that one, then the next, creating a temporal sequence of cause and effect. But from an information perspective, something different is happening. Each falling domino is transferring information about its state to the next domino in line. The temporal flow you observe is actually information flowing through the system, creating correlations between different parts of the domino chain. This information-theoretic view of time suggests something profound. What we call time might actually be the universe's way of processing information. When information flows from one part of a system to another, it creates the appearance of temporal sequence. The past becomes the regions where information originated. The future becomes the regions where information is flowing toward, and the present becomes the moving boundary where information transfer is currently happening. Your consciousness might be the universe's most sophisticated information processing system. Every thought you think involves information flowing through your neural networks. Your sense of personal continuity through time might be the subjective experience of information being continuously integrated, stored, and retrieved in your brain. When you feel like you're moving through time, you might actually be experiencing information flowing through the complex network of your consciousness. This perspective offers a new understanding of memory and anticipation. Your memories aren't records of past events stored in some temporal filing cabinet. They're current information patterns in your brain that happen to be correlated with past information states. Similarly, your expectations about the future aren't glimpses of what's coming. They're current information processing that generates correlations with probable future information states. The information view also explains why time seems to have a direction. Information, like entropy, tends to flow from regions of high order to regions of low order, from concentrated sources to distributed destinations. When you speak, information flows from your organized thoughts into sound waves that spread through the air. When you write, information flows from your mind onto paper or screen. This natural direction of information flow creates the arrow of time we experience. But here's what's particularly beautiful about this perspective. It suggests that consciousness and time are intimately connected through information processing. The more complex your information processing capabilities, the richer your experience of time becomes. A simple system might process information in basic ways, creating a rudimentary sense of temporal sequence. But your sophisticated consciousness can process information in multiple ways simultaneously, remembering, anticipating, planning, dreaming, creating the rich, multidimensional experience of time that characterizes human awareness. This view also offers hope about the nature of death and continuity. If your consciousness is fundamentally an information pattern, then what we call you might be more persistent than the biological processes that currently support it. Information patterns can be preserved, transferred, and even reconstructed. While the specific biological substrate of your consciousness is temporary, the information patterns that constitute your thoughts, memories, and personality might be far more enduring. The information theoretic view of time suggests that you're not just a passive observer of temporal flow, you're an active participant in the universe's information processing. Every decision you make, every memory you form, every creative thought you generate contributes to the overall flow of information that creates temporal experience. You're not just experiencing time, you're helping to weave the informational fabric from which time itself emerges. In this light, every moment of consciousness becomes an act of cosmic information processing. Every thought becomes a contribution to the universal computation that generates temporal reality. As we near the end of our exploration of time's emergent nature, let's consider a perspective that might transform your relationship with temporal anxiety. What if time, as we experience it, is not a fundamental truth about reality, but rather an incredibly useful approximation, like a map that helps us navigate territory without being the territory itself? Think about how maps work. A map of your city doesn't contain actual streets, buildings, or trees. It contains symbols, lines, and colors that represent these features in simplified form. The map isn't true in the sense of being identical to the territory, but it's useful because it captures the essential relationships between different locations. You can use the map to navigate successfully, even though the map itself is an abstraction, a simplified representation of something far more complex. Time might work similarly. The flowing, sequential past-to-future time we experience might be consciousness's map of something far more complex and multidimensional happening at the fundamental level of reality. Just as your city map doesn't show every brick in every building, your temporal experience might not capture every aspect of the underlying timeless quantum processes that give rise to it. But like a good map, it captures the essential features you need to navigate your existence successfully. This approximation serves you well in daily life. You use your sense of temporal flow to coordinate with others, to learn from experience, to plan for the future, to create meaning through narrative and memory. The fact that this temporal experience might be a simplified representation of something more complex doesn't make it less valuable. It makes it more remarkable. Your consciousness has evolved an elegant solution to the challenge of navigating a timeless quantum reality by creating the experience of temporal flow. Consider how this perspective might ease some of the suffering that comes from our relationship with time. Much of our temporal anxiety comes from treating time as absolutely real and then feeling trapped by its limitations. We worry about running out of time, feel regret about the irreversible past, or experience anxiety about the uncertain future. But if time is an approximation rather than an absolute truth, these concerns become less oppressive. The map is useful, but you don't have to feel imprisoned by the map. This view also explains why different approaches to consciousness, meditation, mystical experiences, certain altered states, can lead to experiences where the sense of temporal flow dissolves. These aren't departures from reality. They might be glimpses of the underlying timeless nature of existence that our usual temporal mapping normally obscures. When the approximation relaxes, the more fundamental reality can become briefly apparent. The approximation perspective suggests that the apparent contradictions between different views of time, Einstein's block universe, quantum uncertainty, thermodynamic arrows, emergent flow, might all be true from different vantages. They're like different maps of the same territory, each useful for different purposes, each capturing different aspects of the underlying timeless reality. The block universe map is useful for understanding relativity. The quantum uncertainty map is useful for understanding microscopic processes. The thermodynamic arrow map is useful for understanding irreversibility. The emergent flow map is useful for understanding consciousness. But perhaps most importantly, recognizing time as an approximation can bring a sense of playfulness to your temporal experience. Instead of feeling like you're at the mercy of time's relentless flow, you can appreciate that you're participating in creating this approximation moment by moment. My moment. Your consciousness is like an artist painting the experience of temporal flow from the timeless canvas of quantum reality. Each moment of awareness is both a brushstroke in this ongoing masterpiece and an appreciation of the masterpiece being created. This doesn't diminish the importance of your choices, your relationships, or your experiences. If anything, it makes them more precious. Every moment of love, creativity, understanding, or connection represents not just a temporary event in the flow of time, but a contribution to the ongoing approximation process by which consciousness creates temporal meaning from timeless reality. As you sit here now, perhaps you can feel both aspects simultaneously: the flowing time that carries you from word to word through this exploration, and the deeper, timeless awareness that witnesses this flow without being caught up in it. You are both the mapmaker and the territory, both the consciousness that creates temporal experience and the timeless awareness in which all temporal experience arises. This recognition can bring profound peace. You are not trapped in time, but are time's creative partner, not at the mercy of temporal flow, but participating in its ongoing emergence from the eternal mystery of existence itself. Let's turn our attention to perhaps the most intimate aspect of your experience, the sense of now that seems to accompany your every moment of awareness. Right now, as you process these words, you have a vivid sense of being present, of existing in this particular instant that feels distinct from all the moments that came before and all that will come after. But neuroscience reveals something extraordinary. This feeling of now is actually a sophisticated construction created by your brain, assembled from processes that are scattered across both space and time in ways that challenge our most basic assumptions about consciousness and temporal experience. Consider what happens when you clap your hands. You experience the sight of your hands coming together, the sound of the clap, and the physical sensation of contact as a single, unified moment. This seems natural, even obvious. Of course, these sensations happen simultaneously because they're all part of the same event. But here's what's remarkable. The visual information, auditory information, and tactile information travel to your brain at different speeds and are processed by different neural networks that operate at different rates. The simultaneous experience of the clap is actually your brain's reconstruction, its creative weaving together of information that arrived at different times into a coherent moment of now. Your brain is constantly performing this temporal magic, creating the illusion of synchronized experience from processes that are actually distributed across time. When you watch someone speak, their lip movements and their voice seem perfectly coordinated, but the visual and auditory information are processed at different speeds. Your brain actively synchronizes them, creating the experience that they're happening at the same time. This synchronization isn't passive observation, it's active construction. Your consciousness continuously weaving scattered neural events into the unified experience of the present moment. But the construction goes even deeper. Neuroscientists have discovered that your sense of now actually extends backward and forward in time by several hundred milliseconds. Your brain is constantly integrating information from the recent past and making predictions about the immediate future, all of which contribute to what feels like the present moment. What you experience as now is actually a synthesis of what just happened, what's currently happening, and what your brain expects to happen next. This reveals something profound about the nature of consciousness itself. Your awareness isn't a spotlight illuminating individual moments as they pass by. It's more like a stage where your brain presents carefully orchestrated performances, each one creating the experience of a unified now from elements gathered across time. Every moment of consciousness is an act of temporal artistry, a creative synthesis that transforms the scattered asynchronous activities of your neural networks into the coherent flow of experience. The constructed nature of now also explains some puzzling aspects of temporal perception. Why does time seem to slow down in emergencies or speed up when you're absorbed in something enjoyable? Your brain's construction of temporal experience can be influenced by attention, emotion, and the complexity of information being processed. When you're in danger, your brain dedicates more resources to temporal construction, creating more detailed now moments that make time seem to stretch. When you're absorbed in flow states, fewer resources are dedicated to temporal construction, and moments blend together, making time seem to fly. This construction process explains why meditation and mindfulness practices can so dramatically alter temporal experience. When you meditate, you're not just observing the present moment, you're observing your brain's process of constructing the present moment. As this construction becomes more conscious and intentional, your relationship with time naturally transforms. You begin to see now not as something that happens to you, but as something you participate in creating. The fact that now is constructed rather than simply perceived also offers insight into why different states of consciousness, dreams, psychedelic experiences, deep meditation, can have such different temporal qualities. These states involve different patterns of neural activity, which create different constructions of now. Time can stretch, compress, loop, or disappear entirely because the construction process itself is being altered. Perhaps most beautifully, recognizing the constructed nature of now can bring a sense of agency to your temporal experience. Instead of feeling like you're at the mercy of time's passage, you can appreciate that you're an active participant in creating your experience of the present moment. Every instant of awareness is both a gift from the universe and a creative act of consciousness, a moment when the timeless activity of your brain is woven into the temporal tapestry of human experience. Your experience of time is intimately woven together with memory in ways that create what psychologists call the psychological present, a rich, multidimensional sense of temporal existence that extends far beyond the narrow instant of immediate sensation. This psychological present is like a vast cathedral of time, where past experiences provide the foundation, future expectations form the arches reaching overhead, and the present moment serves as the altar where consciousness gathers it all together into meaningful experience. Think about how memory shapes your sense of time's passage. When you remember yesterday, you're not just accessing stored information, you're reliving temporal experience, recreating the sense of duration and sequence that originally accompanied those events. Your memories come with their own temporal signatures, their own sense of how long things took, how quickly or slowly events unfolded. This remembered temporality becomes part of your current psychological present, creating layers of temporal experience that extend your sense of now far beyond the immediate moment. But memory's relationship with time is even more complex than simple storage and retrieval. Each time you remember something, you're not just accessing a fixed record, you're reconstructing the memory in the context of your current temporal location. Your memories of past events are actually influenced by your present emotional state, your current knowledge, and your expectations about the future. The past you remember is partially created by the present you're experiencing, making memory a collaborative dance between past and present rather than a simple archive of former experiences. Consider how this works with something as simple as remembering your morning routine. When you recall brushing your teeth this morning, you're not just retrieving a static recording, you're reconstructing the experience using your current knowledge about bathrooms, toothbrushes, and morning rituals, combined with specific details from this morning's particular iteration of the routine. The temporal quality of the memory, how long it seemed to take, what the rhythm felt like, is reconstructed using both past and present information. This reconstruction process explains why memory and temporal perception are so intimately connected. Your sense of how much time has passed since an event depends not just on clock time, but on how much your mental context has changed since then. Events that led to significant personal growth feel more distant in time than events that were similar to your current experience, even if they occurred more recently. Your psychological time is elastic, stretching and compressing, based on the richness and significance of the experiences that fill it. Your anticipation of the future works similarly, extending your psychological present forward in time through what we might call prospective memory. When you plan for tomorrow, imagine next week, or dream about your future, you're not just thinking about what might happen, you're creating temporal experience in advance. Your brain uses current information and past patterns to construct future scenarios, complete with their own sense of temporal flow and duration. These imagined futures become part of your current psychological present, influencing your emotions, decisions, and overall sense of temporal existence. The interplay between memory and anticipation creates what could be called your temporal signature, a unique pattern of how you experience time's passage based on your personal history and future expectations. Someone with rich, varied memories might experience a more expansive psychological present, while someone focused intensely on future goals might experience the present as a launching pad toward anticipated experiences. Your temporal signature shapes not just how you experience duration, but how you make decisions, form relationships, and create meaning in your life. This expanded understanding of the psychological present offers profound insights for living more fully. When you realize that your experience of time extends far beyond the immediate moment to include the temporal dimensions of memory and anticipation, you can begin to curate these dimensions more consciously. Developing richer, more detailed memories doesn't just improve your recall, it expands your psychological present, making your temporal experience more vivid and meaningful. Similarly, cultivating healthy relationships with future possibilities, neither anxious nor detached, but engaged and open, enriches your present temporal experience. Your future isn't separate from your current moment. It's part of the temporal architecture that gives the present its depth and meaning. Perhaps most importantly, understanding the psychological present reveals that you're not just a passenger in time's flow, you're an active curator of temporal experience, continuously shaping your relationship with past and future in ways that transform the very nature of your present moment awareness. As we reach toward the heart of consciousness's relationship with time, we encounter what might be the deepest mystery of all, the question of whether consciousness creates the flow of time, or time creates the flow of consciousness, or whether they are both aspects of something even more fundamental. This question takes us to the very edge of human understanding, where neuroscience meets philosophy, meets the irreducible mystery of what it means to be aware in a temporal universe. Consider the stream of consciousness that William James described, that continuous flow of thoughts, sensations, memories, and anticipations that characterizes your inner experience. Right now, as you process these words, your consciousness is flowing from one idea to the next, creating connections, forming associations, building understanding in what feels like real time. But here's the profound question: is this flow consciousness moving through time, or is it consciousness creating time through its flowing nature? Some theories suggest that consciousness might be the universe's solution to a fundamental problem: how to experience a timeless reality as if it unfolds sequentially. If the block universe is real, if all moments exist simultaneously in space-time, then consciousness might be the mechanism that creates the experience of moving through this eternal landscape. Your stream of consciousness would be like a reading light moving across the pages of an infinite book, illuminating different passages in sequence and creating the subjective experience of narrative flow. From this perspective, the flow of consciousness isn't just your personal experience of temporal passage, it's the universe experiencing itself temporally from within its own timeless structure. Every moment of awareness is the cosmos coming to know itself from a particular temporal perspective, creating the lived experience of time from the eternal pattern of space-time. But there's another possibility equally profound. Perhaps consciousness doesn't create temporal flow, but is itself an emergent property of temporal processes. In this view, The stream of consciousness emerges from the complex temporal dynamics of your brain's neural networks. The flowing quality of awareness would arise from information cascading through neural circuits, creating feedback loops and resonances that generate the unified field of conscious experience. Either way, what becomes clear is that consciousness and temporality are intimately connected in ways that make them difficult to separate. Your awareness always has a temporal structure. Thoughts follow thoughts. Sensations arise and pass away. Attention moves from object to observer. Even in the deepest meditative states, where the sense of temporal flow might dissolve, consciousness maintains a kind of temporal signature, a rhythm of awareness that gives experience its dynamic quality. This intimate connection suggests something beautiful about the nature of both consciousness and time. They might be complementary aspects of the same underlying reality. Just as wave and particle are complementary descriptions of light's behavior, consciousness and temporality might be complementary descriptions of whatever it is that makes experience possible. You can't have consciousness without some form of temporal structure, and you can't have experienced time without some form of consciousness to create the experience. This complementarity offers a new way of understanding some of the deepest questions about existence. The question, what is consciousness? And the question, what is time, might actually be the same question asked from different angles. Both consciousness and time share certain fundamental characteristics. They're both dynamic rather than static. Both involve the creation of pattern and meaning from more basic components. Both seem to involve the emergence of unity from multiplicity. The flow of consciousness also reveals something profound about the participatory nature of existence. Your awareness isn't just observing reality, it's participating in reality's ongoing self-creation. Every moment of consciousness is both a response to what is and a contribution to what's becoming. Your thoughts, perceptions, and experiences don't just register the universe's temporal unfolding, they participate in creating it. This participatory aspect means that consciousness carries both tremendous freedom and tremendous responsibility. The quality of your awareness, whether it's anxious or peaceful, fragmented or unified, reactive or responsive, contributes to the overall temporal texture of reality itself. Your consciousness is not separate from the universe looking in. It's the universe looking at itself from within, and the quality of that looking matters. As you contemplate the flowing nature of your own awareness, you might notice something remarkable. The very act of observing consciousness's flow changes that flow. Awareness aware of itself creates recursive loops that transform the temporal structure of experience. In these moments, you glimpse the profound intimacy between consciousness and time, not as separate phenomena interacting, but as complementary faces of the single mysterious process we call existence. As we draw our exploration toward a close, you might be wondering if all of this is true. If time really is the grand illusion we've been exploring, then how does this change the way you actually live your daily life? The beauty of this question is that understanding time's illusory nature doesn't make practical life meaningless. Instead, it can transform your relationship with everyday experience in ways that bring more peace, presence, and wonder to even the most ordinary moments. Consider how this understanding might change your relationship with scheduling and deadlines. When you realize that the pressure you feel about running out of time is based on an illusion, that time doesn't actually flow away from you like water down a drain, the urgency becomes less oppressive. You still meet your commitments and care for your responsibilities, but you do so from a place of participation rather than anxiety. You're not racing against time. You're dancing with the temporal rhythms that help coordinate social life and personal projects. This perspective can transform how you experience waiting. Those moments when you're stuck in traffic, standing in line, or sitting in a doctor's waiting room no longer feel like time being wasted or stolen from your life. Instead, they become opportunities to rest in the timeless awareness that underlies all temporal experience. When you're not struggling against the apparent slowness of time's passage, these pauses become gifts, spaces where you can simply be present without needing to accomplish anything or get anywhere. Your relationship with aging and physical change can also shift profoundly. The anxiety about getting older often comes from the illusion that time is carrying you inevitably toward decay and death, like a river flowing toward a waterfall. But if time is constructed rather than fundamental, then aging becomes less about time doing something to you and more about the natural evolution of the complex system that is your body-mind. You're not losing time. You're participating in the ongoing transformation that characterizes all living systems. Similarly, your relationship with past mistakes and future worries can become much lighter. That embarrassing thing you did years ago isn't trapped forever in an unchangeable past. It's part of the eternal structure of space-time, balanced by all the moments of growth, learning, and wisdom that followed. Unbodnet, or similarly, your relationship with past mistakes and future worries can become much lighter. Your anxiety about future events isn't about confronting an uncertain void. It's about your consciousness preparing to participate in the unfolding of experiences that, from the block universe perspective, already exist in their completeness. The understanding of time's illusory nature can bring remarkable peace to grief and loss. When someone you love dies, the devastating feeling that they've been erased from existence gives way to a deeper recognition. Their entire life remains eternally present in the structure of space-time. Every conversation you shared, every moment of love you experienced together, every way they influenced your growth, all of this exists forever in the timeless landscape of reality. You haven't lost them to the past. They remain eternally present in a different region of space-time than the one you currently inhabit. This doesn't diminish the reality of missing them or the natural sadness that comes with their physical absence from your current experience, but it provides a foundation of peace beneath the waves of grief, a recognition that love, once it has existed, becomes an eternal feature of reality itself. Your approach to goals and ambitions can also transform. Instead of feeling like you're racing against time to achieve certain outcomes before some arbitrary deadline, you can appreciate that you're participating in the gradual unfolding of possibilities that already exist in potential. This doesn't make you passive or unmotivated. If anything, it can make you more creative and present in your efforts, since you're not driven by temporal scarcity, but inspired by the joy of participation in the universe's self-expression. Even your daily routines can become opportunities for wonder when you recognize their role in the construction of temporal experience. Brushing your teeth, eating meals, taking walks. These aren't just mundane activities filling time until something more interesting happens. They're your participation in the ongoing creation of temporal experience itself, moments when consciousness weaves together sensation, memory, and anticipation into the rich tapestry of lived existence. Perhaps most importantly, understanding time's constructed nature can help you be more present. When you're not constantly trying to get somewhere else in time, reliving the past or anticipating the future, you can rest more fully in the timeless awareness that is always available. This presence isn't about stopping time or escaping temporality, but about recognizing the eternal awareness within which all temporal experience arises. There's a profound peace that comes from truly understanding that every moment, including this very moment, as you listen to these words, exists eternally in the structure of reality. This isn't just a philosophical concept to contemplate, it's a lived recognition that can transform your entire relationship with existence. When you deeply grasp that nothing is ever truly lost, that every experience becomes a permanent part of the cosmic masterpiece, a gentle stillness can settle over even the most turbulent aspects of life. Think about a moment from your past that brings you joy, perhaps a sunset you witnessed, a conversation with a loved one, or a moment of unexpected beauty that stopped you in your tracks. In the conventional view of time, that moment is gone, existing only in the fading traces of memory. But from the perspective of the eternal now, that moment is happening right now, as real and present as this current instant. The sunset is still painting the sky in its eternal location within space-time. The conversation is still unfolding in its timeless coordinates. The beauty you witnessed is still radiating its illumination into the fabric of existence. This recognition can bring tremendous comfort when you're struggling with the transient nature of pleasant experiences. That feeling of desperately trying to hold on to beautiful moments, to make them last, to prevent them from slipping away. This desperation dissolves when you realize that nothing beautiful ever actually disappears. Every moment of love you've experienced, every instance of joy, every flash of insight or wonder becomes an eternal jewel in the crown of existence. The universe doesn't forget these moments. It treasures them forever. But this eternal preservation extends to all experiences, not just the pleasant ones. Those moments of pain, confusion, fear, or sadness that you wish you could erase from your personal history. These too exist eternally in the structure of space-time. At first, this might seem like bad news. Why would you want your suffering to be preserved forever? But there's a deeper wisdom here. Your difficult experiences exist eternally alongside all the growth, healing, and wisdom they eventually catalyzed. The complete story of your existence includes both the challenges and your response to those challenges, both the wounds and the healing, both the questions and the gradual emergence of understanding. From this eternal perspective, your life isn't a race against time to maximize pleasant experiences and minimize difficult ones. Instead, it's a complete work of art, with shadows that give depth to the light, with discord that makes harmony more precious, with struggles that make moments of peace more profound. Every aspect of your experience contributes to the eternal beauty of the whole, like different colors in a vast painting that wouldn't be complete without each particular shade. This understanding can transform your relationship with impermanence in daily life. When you're enjoying a beautiful meal, spending time with loved ones, or experiencing any form of pleasure, you don't need to grasp at it desperately or feel anxious about its eventual end. The experience is being permanently woven into the eternal fabric of reality as it unfolds. You can relax into full presence with what's happening, knowing that your appreciation is adding something precious to the universe's eternal self-awareness. Similarly, when you're going through difficult periods, illness, loss, uncertainty, or any form of suffering, you can find peace in knowing that these experiences too are temporary from your personal perspective, while being meaningful from the eternal perspective. Your struggles aren't meaningless blips in an indifferent universe. They're part of the profound story of consciousness, exploring all possibilities of existence. Sid Rishi, the universe is learning about resilience through your resilience, discovering courage through your courage, understanding compassion through your gradual development of wisdom and kindness. This eternal view also brings peace to the question of death and endings. In the conventional view, death represents complete cessation, the end of all possibility, the final closing of the book of your existence. But from the eternal perspective, death is more like reaching the end of a chapter that will always exist within the complete novel. Your entire life, every breath, every thought, every relationship, every moment of consciousness remains forever present in the eternal structure of reality. Death doesn't erase your existence. It completes it, like a signature at the end of a beautiful letter that makes the whole communication meaningful. This recognition can bring profound peace, not just about your own mortality, but about the nature of all endings. When relationships change, when careers end, when any phase of life completes itself, you can appreciate that nothing essential is being lost. The eternal value of what was experienced remains forever, contributing to the infinite richness of existence itself. As we come to rest at the end of our journey together, let's pause to appreciate something extraordinary. The sheer improbability and beauty of the fact that you exist at all, that consciousness has emerged in this particular corner of the cosmos to contemplate the nature of time itself. Whether time is fundamental or emergent, flowing or illusory, the fact remains that here you are, aware, curious, capable of wonder, participating in perhaps the universe's most remarkable achievement, the capacity to experience and understand its own nature. Consider the astronomical improbabilities that had to align for this moment to exist. Billions of years of cosmic evolution, the formation of stars and planets, the emergence of life, the development of nervous systems complex enough to support consciousness, the evolution of human beings capable of abstract thought, the entire chain of events that led to your particular existence. All of this had to unfold in precisely the way it did for you to be here now, contemplating the mystery of time. From this perspective, every moment of consciousness is not just remarkable but miraculous, a winning lottery ticket in the cosmic game of possibility. But there's an even deeper beauty here. If our exploration has revealed anything, it's that consciousness and time are intimately connected, possibly even different faces of the same underlying mystery. This means that your awareness isn't just observing the universe, it's the universe becoming aware of itself. Every moment of consciousness is the cosmos exploring its own nature from within, discovering its own patterns and possibilities through the lens of subjective experience. Where you are not separate from the universe looking in, you are the universe looking at itself from the inside. This recognition transforms the entire question of meaning and purpose. You don't need to justify your existence or prove your worth through accomplishments or achievements. The very fact that you are conscious, that awareness has flowered in this particular configuration of matter and energy, is itself the universe's greatest accomplishment. Your capacity to experience beauty, to feel love, to wonder about existence, to be present to this moment. These aren't just personal experiences, but cosmic events, moments when the universe becomes conscious of its own beauty and mystery. Every breath you take is the universe breathing. Every thought you think is the cosmos thinking. Every moment of love you experience is existence loving itself. This isn't poetry or metaphor. If consciousness and cosmos are as intimately connected as our exploration suggests, then your most personal experiences are simultaneously the most universal events possible. The boundary between self and universe dissolves when you recognize that consciousness is how the universe experiences itself from within. This understanding brings a profound kind of freedom. If you are the universe experiencing itself, then you don't need to be anywhere else or anyone else to be fulfilling your cosmic purpose. Right here, right now, in whatever circumstances you find yourself, you are perfectly positioned to be consciousness itself, to be the universe's way of being aware. Whether you're washing dishes or solving complex problems, feeling joy or working through difficulties, you are always perfectly expressing the cosmos's capacity for self-awareness. The beauty extends to the recognition that every conscious being is equally precious from this perspective. Every person you encounter, every animal you observe, every form of awareness you witness is another facet of the universe's self-exploration. The diversity of conscious experience, all the different ways awareness can manifest and explore reality, represents the richness of the cosmos's investigation into its own nature. Your particular perspective is irreplaceable because it's the universe's unique window into existence from exactly your vantage point. This view also brings peace to the question of consciousness after death. If consciousness is the universe's way of experiencing itself, then the capacity for awareness is as fundamental as existence itself. While your particular configuration of consciousness is temporary, consciousness itself, the universe's capacity for self-awareness, continues through all the myriad forms it takes. You are a wave in the ocean of cosmic consciousness, and while waves rise and fall, the ocean itself is eternal. Perhaps most beautifully, this understanding reveals that every moment of awareness is both completely ordinary and absolutely extraordinary. Ordinary, because consciousness is the natural state of the universe. Awareness is what existence does. Sida Firstros, one of Eza, distance does. Sida Firstros, one of Eza, distance does. Sida Firstros, one of Eza, distance does. Extraordinary, because each moment of consciousness is unique, irreplaceable, a particular flowering of cosmic self-awareness that has never existed before and will never exist again in exactly the same way. So as you sit here now, recognize that you are both insignificant and infinitely precious, a brief flickering of awareness in cosmic time, and simultaneously the universe itself coming to know its own timeless nature through your consciousness. And so, dear friend, we find ourselves at the gentle conclusion of our journey through the mystery of time. We've wandered together through Einstein's curved space-time, danced with quantum uncertainties, explored the statistical nature of temporal flow, and discovered that consciousness itself might be time's creative partner. What began as a simple question, does time exist, has blossomed into something far more beautiful, a recognition that existence itself is far stranger and more wonderful than we ever dared imagine. I'm curious, are you still awake, or did you drift off somewhere between the block universe and quantum entanglement? No judgment either way. Sometimes the most profound truths are best absorbed in the liminal space between waking and dreaming. As you carry these ideas forward, I invite you to hold them lightly, like soap bubbles that reveal rainbow colors when touched by light but disappear if grasped too tightly. Perhaps time exists, perhaps it doesn't, or perhaps that's the wrong question entirely. What remains constant is the miracle of awareness itself, your capacity to wonder, to question, to find beauty in mystery. If this exploration brought you even a moment of peace with time's passage, or sparked a gentle curiosity about the nature of existence, then our journey together has been worthwhile. A like or subscription helps these quiet contemplations reach other wandering souls. May you rest peacefully in the timeless awareness that you are, always were, and always will be.